Hey everyone, welcome back to my Inner Anchor podcast. Thank you for joining me and thank you for following on from last week. If you listened to last week's episode where we talked about masculinity, vulnerability and being human, we're continuing that theme both with this episode and the next episode. And this episode is called Brotherhood over Banter. I wanted to go somewhere real, somewhere us guys don't often go and don't often talk about, but somewhere we need to go and we need to talk about more. And just to caveat again, similar to last week, this episode isn't about excluding women or any other genders, however you identify. Full respect to all of you. It's not about creating a divide. It's not about putting anyone above anyone else. It's about strengthening men so they can show up better for everyone. Their partners, their families, their friends, everyone in their lives, in their communities, and for themselves. Because when a man is grounded, when they're connected, when they're emotionally steady, like anyone, when they know who they are, everyone around them feels it. And a grounded person is a safer person. It's a more loving person, a more present person, a more reliable person. And I want to take this in time. I had a lot of feedback following on from last week's show, and I know it's a subject that is kind of a bit hot topic, I guess, and with Mental Health Awareness Week being, up until Sunday, as I'm recording this, it was one that I know impacted quite massively, and I had a lot of nice feedback from people, and a lot of people who told me they were looking for that space that I was hoping it would create. So thank you for everyone who's done that. I hope this one offers a bit more of that space and a bit more of the picture. And like I say, this is not to exclude anyone, but I can only talk from my standpoint, and I am male, so that is going to be my standpoint. This is just something I feel is a big part of the inner anchor, obviously, and my inner anchor being my experience is this, and I have to talk about all of it. And I think it's important because when I had my breakdown a couple of years ago, there wasn't a place. It's not locally to me anyway. There wasn't a lot of things physically. My CBT therapy was all self-doing. My counselling was online. And I know there's some groups around my area now that have got better at that. And hats off to the people involved in all those organisations. But I just think it's an important subject to talk about, given that, like I say, so much of the toxic side of things is shouting what they believe is the right way to men and young men in particular. And me and my friend were talking about this last night, and it's scary what they're being told. So I just wanted to reiterate with these next few episodes what my views are, and it's only ever my views and opinions and how I feel. It's nothing more, it's nothing less. And like I say, today we're going to talk about something that sits at the heart of the grounded masculinity side of things that I wanted to showcase, highlight, offer out there as an alternate way, just another flagship, another flag in the sand, so to speak, of this is okay as well. And a huge part of that grounded masculinity is what I'm starting to refer to as brotherhood over banter. So we all know banter, the surface level, joke heavy side of conversation. It's just banter's in it, mate. Well, you know what? Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's not banter. Sometimes you're projecting your insecurities onto others. Sometimes a friend is insecure about a feel way, but in a bid to look more alpha, you might bring up their insecurities, which isn't kind, it isn't right, it isn't just. So you get the banter, that surface level, don't get too deep kind of friendships, that kind of everything's a laugh because no one wants to be the first to be real kind of thing. It's ego driven, it's competitive. Who's the alpha in the room? Rubbish. And that's not to say your brotherhood, you can't have laughs and jokes with your brothers, with your brother in arms, the guys you really trust, because you absolutely can. And I'll go into my sort of personal experience with that in a bit, but I'm talking about that grounded, real, deep brotherhood of a friendship. The kind where us men witness each other, we challenge each other, we hold each other accountable, we try to, offer a safe space, a place to talk, be there for each other, steady each other if the sea's feeling a little stormy, and remind our brothers in arms who they are when they're weathering that storm, when they're lost in the waves, when they are struggling to grab hold of that inner anchor. Maybe we grab it for them and remind them where it is, tell them what they are, tell them who they are as people. Because we all know when life gets loud and your mind gets busy, sometimes you need someone to go, whoa, this isn't who you are, man. It's not who you are. And just in the way that everyone needs everyone in this life, and men do need relationships with women, and positive ones, and women need relationships with women, and everyone needs relationships with people where they come from, where they standpoint. That could be their gender, that could be their age, that could be their era, it could be hobby, sports, interests, whatever. But I think there is a big thing for men supporting men, and I'm not talking about domination here and the alpha beta thing, which is just rubbish, by the way. It's not to dominate, it's not to pose, not to perform, just to connect, to grow, to be accountable, staying anchored. So yeah, let's get into it. Brotherhood over Banter, the lost art of male connection. Somewhere along the way, I think male connection got distorted. It started be talking, and don't get wrong, we all have a laugh and a joke, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that every conversation has to be deep and personal. Just the space to know that you can have them, and that those people are true and will listen is a huge thing. But I think as society-wise, like I said, I was very, very lucky with the way my dad brought me up, enforcing a nature of talking and everything else. But some people don't have that, and sometimes that's a generational thing that they don't have with their dads or the stepdads or whoever's father figure. But sometimes they have that openness, that safe space with real friends. And then somewhere along the line, society-wise, we kind of replace connection with comparison. Brotherhood with bravado, honesty with humour, replace depth with distraction. And I'm the first to admit I've done all of those things. I've when I haven't been at my best and most authentic, I'd be the first one with the distraction. I told you exactly how I distracted myself for years. Distracting myself with various tasks and all those kind of things. Connection with comparison, definitely. Definitely do that. People try and align with me, and I go, oh no, well you're better at that than me, or oh you're looking good, mate. You lost some weight, been in the gym. Oh look, no, nothing compared to you. Look at you, you look great. That immediate backhand that's quite British in a way. And I don't think most of us realise it's even happening. We grow up being told to be strong, but we're not particularly told how to be strong or what that looks like. So most of the time, I was lucky, but by example, most of it. Told to be how to be independent, or told to be independent, but not really how to ask for support and how to have those tools in place so that you can be independent. We're told to lead, but not how to be vulnerable. And there's one phrase that we're going to get into in a bit more detail. We're told to man up, but never actually show what that means. And I think I'll go back into the man up thing a little later on. But yeah, that's a toxic phrase I'd like, frankly, to put into Room 101. So it becomes about competition instead of connection. We learn to joke instead of how to feel. We learn to isolate instead of being open. And we can learn to everything alike. We think we have to learn to carry everything alone. because we think that's what strength looks like. But here's the truth. Banter, it's easy. You can tease, you can joke, you can wind up, you can laugh at, stroke with anyone. And fairly quickly I find that you can do that. Fairly quickly. But Brotherhood is where things get real. And I wanted to talk about my own circle for a moment. Because I think it's important to acknowledge them and to say thanks. There are people in my life, in my circle of friends, that have really helped me these last few years. And they know exactly who they are. Some of the men, with regards to my very good friends Paul and Max, are in the teaser post for this episode. You might have seen we've got AI to play a little bit of gamble and a little trickery with a photo we took when we were going to go to the Offspring last year back in October, and that's Max and Paul either side of me with those arms, around each other, holding each other up. My true brothers in this world are the men who see me at my best. They've seen me at my worst. They've called me out when I needed to be called out. They've held space for me when I didn't have the words. They didn't let me hide behind human distraction. They frankly called me out on that and were like, come on. Those friends that look you in the eye and said, you alright? And not the throwaway thing, because they call you out. Nah, seriously man, how are you? Mate, I can tell you're not alright, what's going on? Not the throwaway, you alright? Yeah, I'm fine, cool. The real one. Moments where they saw through the mask I was wearing, and they didn't let me pretend any longer. Moments where I felt steady because I had that bond, that understanding from another gentleman who was ready and standing by my side and be ready with me. Those moments matter, they shape us. They remind us that we're not meant to do life alone. Male connection isn't weak, it isn't soft, it is unmanly, it's necessary, it's ancient, it's grounding, it's human, it's almost tribal. And I think it's time we reclaim it properly. And not in this stupid manaverse, idiots talking loud and talking rubbish thing, but in real connection, in really being there for each other and really standing each other and holding each other up, not pushing each other down, not picking each other up to cut each other off at the knee, to genuinely be there for each other. There's a lot going on in my personal life, and I know exactly who I can rely on. And that's not to discount people who may no longer be in my life. Everything's got its season, you know what I mean? People will fall in and out of your life. And if you're meant to continue that road, then it'll come back. The way I try and described it, or was trying to describe it when I was going through my counselling, was like it's a book or a film, right? We're all the lead characters in our own book and our own story. And there'll be other characters that are in and out for a few chapters. One other character might be in it for, quite a portion of time. But the ones that turn up, there's always those characters that just turn up when you need them. And there's your brotherhood. I think it's time we reclaim that word and reclaimed masculinity on the grounded side of things. To give accountability in stories. When I was going through my hard time. And it's, ironic, like I was just talking about coming in and out of chapters. So, there's a few groups, and I'll give a few examples, but of course there's more than this to me in my life. So, there's a group of my friends that we all went to school together. We did all the stuff you do as a teenager, drinking, partying, going out, painting the town red, or in Danny's case pink, and having a great time, and really enjoying each other's company, and all the silliness. And we still talk and laugh about all the stupid stuff we did, homemade jackass stunts and stuff like that. That's our kind of area, going to gigs together and whatnot, and that still happens, the gig thing, which is great. But you grow older. Some of us went to university, some of us went to college, some went to work, some went and joined forces, and life takes you in other directions. And we always kept in touch, and touch base with each other here and there, but not in one big group like we do now. And that started a couple of years ago. Danny, my friend, he was up from London and lives down there now, and me and him had constantly said online, "Oh, next time you're back, mate, we'll have a pint, we'll have a," and we never did. But unfortunately, we had our friend Sarah, who died by suicide, and Danny decided he was coming up to pay his respects to Sarah, and while he was here, he was sort of adamant about reconnecting with people, and it was supposed to be a quick drink after work kind of thing, and we ended up being out till like 2 a.m, and we weren't even heavily drinking, we were just there talking, and suddenly that relationship came back, and it was there in an instant. The initial intros and reintroductions went by, and with some of us, how's the kids, with others, how's the family, and what's been going on. And naturally we'd all sort of set up our WhatsApp group. But what I love about that WhatsApp group is everything goes in it. Stupid memes, jokes, silly things that have happened during the day, general conversation. But between us all, we've battled a lot. We've battled a lot. Between a lot of us, there's been health issues, addiction, PTSD, mental breakdowns, eating disorders, grief, bereavement, destruction, everything that a group of people go through. And 1 minute we can just be talking about silly things that we did at 13, 14, 15, and the other minute someone will pipe up and say, "This is going on, guys, I don't know what to do." And the conversation shifts to a place where it needs to be. We're held accountable. We will constantly check in with each other. If someone's being quiet, they'll happily pull me aside and say, "Lee, what's up, mate? You're quiet. You're drifting. This isn't you." There's no shame. There's no judgment. No one's trying to dominate one of the other ones. Just holding up a mirror, a loving one, and saying, "We're here. We're here for you." And that means a huge deal to me. And I've been really lucky to have those people back in my life. And same with my friend Neil, in a different friendship group. Neil, a few years ago, I don't even know how I ended up opening up, but I started talking about the fact that the eating disorder thing had kind of crept up again, and I was down to 1 meal a day if I was lucky, and training hard and everything else, and again, distraction and thinking it was healthy, but it wasn't a healthy habit to have. And Neil's always checked in, and he always checks in. Like I say, there's a lot going on with my family at the moment, and there has been with mum battling cancer, and now Sean, my mum's other half, battling cancer, and it's tough, and it triggers things. It can be quite a triggering thing. Everyone holds each other accountable, which is brilliant. And Neil's also really honest, and he'll say, "You're doing too much, mate." He didn't wait for me to bring it up. He'll see it. He knows in the way I talk, in the way I address certain things. He'll pick it up, and he'll be like, and he'll touch base, he'll call, and it's great to have that support. And I'm truly grateful to him and Luke, and to James, and to Nick. I'm grateful to Danny and Max and Paul, and Hayley's in the group as well. So Hayley, you are in our new Brotherhood in that regard. And it's important. It's important to have that support and to have another man in your life where you feel like, okay, I'm not the only one struggling here. I'm not a weaker man. Everyone's going through this. Cut the bravado. Cut the rubbish. And Neil and I have talking about this quite a lot. I've done 24-hour shows on the radio show that I do at times, and he's come in, and we've all kind of fallen into this pact. One of us slips up mentally, emotionally, physically. The others are straight in. Not to fix necessarily, not to rescue, to steady. A real brotherhood. No banter, no bravado, egos left at the door. Truth without judgment, support without smothering, and accountability without shame. The stories aren't unique. I know plenty of people in this life will have similar relationships, but they are rare because we're not taught to do this for each other. Some of us do because of certain things we've been through, but we can practice it. Women and some other genders are far more supportive of each other as a rule. I know that's not always the case, and I'm not saying that flippantly, but society-wise, it kind of dictates that most of the time women are just better. If they know their girlfriend is going through a bad time or something's going on, they just, they'll gather around, they'll talk, they're far better with their emotions than we are. Us blokes don't understand our emotions. That's why most of us, including myself, have this base level of anger. And anger's not even really the real emotion at that point anyway. But it's disguised because it's confused with anything else that we might be going through. But we can learn, and we can practice, we can change habits, we can build circles that hold us and not hide us. And I do think, there's something to be said for men holding each other accountable. I remember one scenario, this is, years ago, I was in the pub when I was at university, and there was an elder gentleman who used to frequent the pub, and he was, late 70s, maybe he was in his 80s, and he was a nice guy, and he used to come in every Saturday, a couple of pints, and we'd all have a natter with him. Pubs like everyone's talking with everyone, but he was quite a quiet chap, and he would keep himself to himself. Anyway, one day we were in there, and there was a couple in the pub, and I can't remember what it was about, but they were having an argument anyway, and the guy starts being quite derogatory to the woman, and it's pointing finger comes out, and it's starting to get a little bit heated, where we think, for want of a better tongue, younger men in the pub are thinking, okay, are we going to have to get physical with this guy? Is it going to have to be a strain? Is this going to kick off properly? When do I step in? And the older gentleman said, who was brilliant, I loved him to bits, he very calmly put his pint down and walked over to him and gently just pushed his hand away from the man's girlfriend and just said, "Come on, son, there's no need to do that. I think you should go home and chill out, take a breather, and come back to this one, meaning the conversation, once you've both calmed down." And I think that was exactly the right thing to do. I think if any of us had stormed in and gone, "What are you doing talking to her like that?" then it would have flared up. But Sid approached it with this calm attitude, but an authoritarian one. an elder man who'd seen the world, who everyone respected, and no one was going to argue with him. And I think we all kind of need that being held accountability. And not only that we shouldn't have that in us, but sometimes we haven't learned that behaviour yet, and that can be for a variety of reasons. Sometimes you're just heated, and you know, things get out of hand. Sometimes you just don't realise what you're doing until someone points it out, and it's fine for people to point it out. So yeah, I think holding men accountable by other men, not that they shouldn't be held accountable by any other gender. I just think there is it's like the older lion thing, you know what I mean? Like just knocking back the young cub when the young cub's being a bit flighty. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, you learn as you grow older, right? And speaking of older cub and man, I think one phrase that I think is completely toxic and is being almost weaponized is the phrase "man up." It's a phrase I hate. I think it's really unhelpful. I don't think it does anyone any good. It's almost been used as a silencer, a shutdown, a way to tell us men, don't feel, don't speak, don't show anything real, we don't want to hear it. What are you talking about that for? That's making everyone uncomfortable. But what if man up didn't mean shut up? What if it didn't mean hide your emotions? What if it didn't mean carry everything on your own? What if man up meant stand up for your truth, show up for those you love, open up when it matters, or rise up with integrity, level up emotionally, not just physically? What if man up meant becoming more human, not less? Imagine a world where man up meant taking responsibility, being accountable, being honest, being present, being grounded, being compassionate, being respectful. I just think that will make a much better world. You know, be strong enough to feel, be brave enough to speak, be steady enough to listen, and be strong enough to take it. That's the version I want to reclaim. That's the version that the Inner Anchor Way stands for. And I wanted to talk about teams and sort of masculine energy, for want of a better term. Movement is medicine for a lot of us. It is for me. Boxing, football, rugby, lifting, running, martial arts. They're not just physical outlets. They're emotional ones. And it's also where a pack comes together. In a way. You know, everything I just mentioned there. Boxing, football, rugby, lifting, running, martial arts. As a rule, you're doing that with someone. The boxing, you might be in ringing against an opponent, but in the background, you're training with someone. You're probably coming from a boxing club where other people are training. You'll have your trainer in your corner when when you've got a fight. Football and rugby, you've obviously got teams. Lifting, you tend to be chatting to other people. There is a camaraderie amongst the gym. Martial arts, again, definite camaraderie. You could be doing, if you do stuff like I did, like defense lab, that kind of thing, you can be doing 4-on-1 stuff, so there's a team. And I think being a team is a huge thing, because if you're part of a team, you individually have a role to play. You're part of an overall picture that sees a result. You know where you stand in that team. You know that you've got the support of others. You know you don't have to do every bit of it. You know, for example, in, like rugby, for example, the prop isn't going to do the same job as the fly-off and the hooker and, anyone else in the team. A goalie, as a rule, isn't worried about what's the scoring a goal. He's worried about protecting it. There's a role to play in that, and I think those roles are important, because when you know you can rely on people in a scenario, and you know you have that trust with someone. My dad used to talk about this, about being in the forces. Obviously in certain fields, especially when he was out in the Falklands and the Gulf War and stuff, he had to rely on his team members for his life, literally. And being part of a team, I think, is really important. It instills a sense of value. You're all on equal playing terms. There's no alpha. Everyone's got their bit to play, and everyone's of equal value. And when you know and have a feeling that you're on that same playing field and you're on that same level, then I think it's important, because you already have that trust. You know how each other works. You inevitably know where someone's coming from. When I was doing martial arts and processing the anger side of my grief, which is kind of all I ever really did, it was like a pressure release valve. I think I've said that before. Sean, another good friend who I would consider a brother, he knew when I was having a bad day. He'd see it in my eyes and he'd go, "Bad day?" I'm like, "Yep." And he'd go, "We leave it here." And he would just make me work it and shift it out of me. It's not just a physical outlet, it's an emotional one. Like I say, being part of those teams, it gives you your place, and you've got that trust. And when you can trust someone with a lot of things, you're more likely to talk to them about stuff you really need to talk about, because you know them a bit more. There's more of a connection. If you just sit in the pub telling jokes, you don't really have that sort of relationship. And it's different for different things, It's not devaluing some of the things. But movement's great, It regulates your nervous system, it releases tension, it builds discipline, creates connection, like I was saying, It gives you a place to express what sometimes we struggle to find the words for. When you train with other men, when you push each other, and you support each other, there's a bond there in that. The gym can be a very sacred and special place. The pitch can be a sacred place. Boxing ring can. The dojo mats. Not because of the physicality, but because of the presence. It gives you a place to feel without needing to talk. A place to really be with yourself, but in the moment as well. You can release without needing to explain. You can reconnect with not necessarily having to justify. For me, movement and exercise was never just training. It's been therapy, it's been grounding, it's part of my inner anchor. And I don't think I'm the only man to feel that from conversations I've had. I was talking last night with my friend Andy, who again is another man I would consider part of my brotherhood. There's been times in recent weeks with stuff that's going on with the family that Andy's just called me up, checked in, made sure I'm alright. We're going for this Sahara trek in November, so we've been going on a few walks for that and got to know him probably on a deeper level. When you're walking 13 miles, you do, because you just talk, and it's similar kind of thing when you're training together every week, or you're about playing a game on team. You just get to know each other better. You go past that bravado and ego and banter and all that. That's not to say you don't have a laugh and a giggle, because of course you do. That's part of life, and it should be. But it's really training, and it's therapy, it's grounding, it's anchoring. I think it's really important to note that us men need men. We do. We just do. And that's not distinguish or disrupt any other relationship you might have going on in your life. But all relationships are important, and they all have their place. And there's a notion that when us men get together, all trouble, you must have been on a stag do or a birthday party or something. when there's a big gang of lads, and it might be loud because you've had a few drinks and you go to you're a part of it, and you go to the next bar or the next club, and immediately it's a no because it's a big gang of lads trying to come in at once, and immediately the doormen are like, oh, well, there'll be trouble here, and you're going, we're not going to cause trouble, mate, we're going to come and have a drink and a dance, like, you know what I mean? But there's this notion that a pack of men bring trouble, and that's not true. You know, I've been out places where something's kicked off and all of us have gone, sod that, and just all walked out and gone somewhere else. You know, you didn't want to be a part of it. But, you know, like was going with Andy in the Sahara Treks, you know, two of his friends, Dom and Ian, they're doing it as well. It was first time meeting them last week on a training walk, and yeah, we were having a laugh and a joke and a giggle and talking about some silly things, but equally 13 miles, that's a long time to walk and cover and try and cover stuff, so cover these gaps of silence, so you inevitably had some quite deep personal conversations. So we do need that connection. It's a unity, like I said before. You know, you're stronger in numbers than you are divided. And you know, with the teaser post I put up for this episode, and I've said it earlier, you know, me and who I'm referring to now as my Brotherhood, you know, we've overcome far more together than I ever would have done on my own. I don't think I would have been here if I'd had to face a lot of things on my own fully. I certainly would have come to the right conclusions anyway, let's put it that way. So I wanted to go through a quick bit of breath work. This one I'm referring to is standing in your strength. Now, as I've said before, if you're driving, maybe do this later. But presence, stand tall, feet grounded, shoulders relaxed, have your chest open, soften your eyes. As you inhale, feel that breath move down your throat, into your lungs, down into your stomach. Feel it move through your whole body. Feel the weight of your stance. Feel that steadiness of the earth beneath you. There's no need to perform strength. You're embodying it. It's part of you. Inhale. Feel your chest rise. Feel your lungs fill up. And feel that breath inflate your tummy. Now exhale slowly. Let that breath drop into your stomach. Your shoulders drop. Let that jaw unclench. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel the air in your lungs. Feel the space around you. You're here. You are steady. You are grounded. Inhale again. And exhale. Stand in your strength. Not the ego-driven kind. Not the loud kind. Not the aggressive kind. Not the performative kind. The strength that is honest. The strength that is real. The strength that is quiet. And that's grounded. Inhale. Feel your lungs fill up. Hold it for a second. And exhale again. But remember, you are enough. You are capable. You are present. You are strong. Present. Real. And grounded. Take one more breath in. And out. Thank you guys for listening to me again. Just wanted to close off by saying, these relationships are important. And they're important to not compete, but to connect. Not to be dominant, but to support. Not to be louder, but to be real. Brotherhood, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity we all need. It isn't a weakness, it's strength. You gain far more tools in your arsenal when you're drawing from everyone else's experiences. Grounded masculinity isn't some outdated thing. It's now needed more than ever, I truly do feel. By being grounded, present, true, authentic and honest, you do show up for those around you in a far more positive way. And you have that impact on everyone. So brotherhood might help out the men they are in the brotherhood with. But that obviously helps out everyone in their lives. So brotherhood, in the same way that womanhood would and does, affects everyone. This is my inner anchor. I am Lee. Thank you for trusting me with your time again. Thank you for listening. Thank you to everyone for their feedback. And I'll speak to you all again next week.